Okay, imagine if your city was founded by wolf-raised twins, ruled by backstabbing senators, and eventually set on fire by an emperor who played the lyre. Welcome to ancient Rome, where history makes Game of Thrones look like a group project that actually worked. Our story starts way back. Around the 9th or 10th century BC, Rome was just a small settlement near the Tiber River in Italy. Forget sprawling cities, think more like a humble village trying to make its way. Now, the Romans loved a good origin story, and theirs is a doozy. The myth says twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, were abandoned but found and raised by a she-wolf. Talk about a tough upbringing. Romulus supposedly killed Remus, sibling rivalry, Roman style, and founded the city, naming it after himself. True story? Probably not, but it makes for a much better tale than some farmers settled here. For about 500 years, Rome was ruled by kings. They expanded the territory and built some foundational stuff. It was a period of growth, setting the stage for something much bigger. Around 509 BC, the Romans decided they'd had enough of kings. They overthrew the last one and created something revolutionary, a republic. This meant citizens got a say, sort of. If you were a male Roman citizen, you could vote for your leaders and on important issues. Women and enslaved people, unfortunately, were left out of the voting booth. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step towards representative government. The Republic had a cool system of checks and balances. 2 elected officials, called consuls, were like co-presidents, keeping each other in line. They served for just 1 year to prevent anyone from getting too powerful. These consuls worked with the Senate, a group of experienced, often wealthy men. Senators advised the consuls and helped make laws. They were appointed for life, which gave them a lot of influence and stability. The Roman army was seriously busy during the Republic. They conquered all of Italy first, showing everyone who was boss. Then they looked across the sea. Their biggest rival was Carthage, a powerful trading city in North Africa. After a series of brutal wars known as the Punic Wars, Rome finally destroyed Carthage in 146 BC. Rome was now the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. Next up, Greece. The Romans admired Greek culture, philosophy, and art, even as they conquered them militarily. It was a classic case of "we beat you, but we really like your statues." The Republic system worked pretty well for 5 centuries. Rome grew incredibly powerful and expanded its territory dramatically, but internal problems started brewing. Success brought wealth, but also inequality and political infighting. A series of civil wars erupted, tearing the Republic apart. It was a chaotic time, ripe for someone strong to step in. That someone was Gaius Julius Caesar. A brilliant general and cunning politician, Caesar saw his opportunity in the chaos. He used his military success and popularity to gain power. Serving as consul, Caesar passed laws that helped his soldiers and ordinary citizens. He conquered Gaul, modern France, and even popped over to Britain for a look. His legions were fiercely loyal to him. The Senate, however, got nervous. Caesar was becoming too popular, too powerful. They feared he wanted to be king, a title Romans hated after their past experience. Knowing the Senate wanted to strip him of power, Caesar made a fateful decision. He marched his army across the Rubicon River into Italy, an act of war against the state. The civil war was on. Caesar won the civil war and was initially named dictator for 10 years. This was a temporary role usually for emergencies, but Caesar stretched the definition. He cancelled debts and granted citizenship to people outside Italy, expanding his support base. He also famously visited Egypt and formed an alliance, and maybe more, with Queen Cleopatra. Caesar was consolidating power and making big moves on the world stage. In 44 BC, Caesar declared himself dictator for life. This was the final straw for many senators. Fearing the return of monarchy, a group of them assassinated him on the Ides of March. 8-2 brute indeed. Caesar was gone, but the drama wasn't over. His death plunged Rome back into civil war. His adopted son and heir, Octavian, battled Caesar's top general, Mark Antony, for control. Octavian eventually defeated Antony and Cleopatra. He was now the sole power in Rome, but he was smart. He didn't call himself king or dictator for life. Instead, he convinced the Senate to grant him vast powers while pretending to restore the Republic. He took the name Augustus Caesar. The family name Caesar became a title, like emperor. Augustus ruled for 45 years, bringing stability and prosperity in what became known as the Pax Romana, Roman peace. He was so successful that after his death, the Senate declared him a god. Not a bad career move. With Augustus, Rome officially transitioned from a republic to an empire. Emperors now ruled for life, often inheriting the position. The Senate still existed, but its power was greatly reduced. Some emperors were competent rulers, like Claudius, who oversaw the conquest of Britain. Others were, well, let's just say colourful. Nero was known for his artistic ambitions and cruelty, while Caligula was famously erratic and possibly insane. It was a real mixed bag. By AD 117, the Roman Empire reached its greatest extent. It stretched from Britain to North Africa, from Spain to the Middle East. One estimate suggests about a quarter of the world's population lived under Roman rule. Imagine trying to manage that. Ruling such a massive territory from the city of Rome became increasingly difficult. Communication was slow, and threats emerged on the borders. The empire was just too big for one person or one city to handle effectively. In AD 285, Emperor Diocletian decided to split the empire into two halves: the Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople, modern Istanbul. It was like trying to manage a giant pizza by cutting it in half. The Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, would last for another 1,000 years, preserving Roman traditions and law. But the Western Empire, with Rome as its capital, began a long, slow decline. Civil wars continued, plagues swept through the population, and economic problems mounted. Various groups from outside the empire, often called barbarians by the Romans, increased their attacks on the borders. Finally, in AD 476, a Germanic king named Odoacer overthrew Romulus Augustus, the last Western Roman emperor. The Western Roman Empire officially fell. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but more like a long drawn-out fade. What was it actually like to live in ancient Rome? If you were poor in the city, you likely lived in a crowded apartment building called an insula. These could be 5 to 7 stories high, often poorly constructed and prone to fires. Think ancient high-rise, but less glamorous. Wealthy Romans lived in comfortable houses called domus. These had multiple rooms, private gardens, and an atrium, an open courtyard with a pool to collect rainwater. Some rich Romans even had fancy vacation villas in places like Pompeii and Herculaneum, until Mount Vesuvius decided to redecorate in AD 79. One thing Romans of all classes loved was the public baths. These weren't just places to get clean, they were social hubs. Like ancient spas, they had gyms, swimming pools, hot and cold plunge pools, saunas, and massage rooms. People would spend hours there, gossiping and relaxing. Entertainment was a big deal. Romans loved plays, often performed in large theatres. Chariot races in the Circus Maximus were incredibly popular and dangerous. Think ancient Formula One with more dust and fewer safety features. And of course, There were the gladiator games in the amphitheaters, most famously the Colosseum. Enslaved people or criminals fought each other or wild animals for public entertainment. It was brutal, but a major part of Roman culture. Speaking of enslaved people, life was incredibly hard for them. They were often prisoners of war and worked in mines, fields, or on ships. Educated enslaved people might work as tutors or secretaries in wealthy households. However, unlike some other ancient societies, enslaved people in Rome could sometimes earn or buy their freedom. A freed enslaved person could even become a Roman citizen, a path to a better life. Roman women's roles were primarily centered around the home and family. They managed the household and raised children. While they couldn't vote or hold public office, some women, particularly from wealthy families, could wield significant influence behind the scenes. Women could work as midwives or become Vestal virgins, priestesses who tended the sacred fire of the goddess Vesta. Divorce was relatively easy for both men and women, but children legally belonged to the father. Religion was woven into daily life. Romans worshipped a pantheon of gods and goddesses, many borrowed from the Greeks, but given Roman names. Zeus became Jupiter, Ares became Mars, etc. They believed these deities influenced their lives and the fate of Rome. People worshipped at public temples and had shrines in their homes. They performed rituals and offered sacrifices to keep the gods happy and ensure Rome's prosperity. It was a very practical approach to religion. So, why do we still talk about ancient Rome thousands of years later? Because its impact is everywhere. The city of Rome is still the capital of Italy, and you can visit incredible ruins like the Colosseum and the Roman Forum, where senators debated and emperors walked. But Rome's legacy goes far beyond cool old buildings. Our modern languages, especially those based on Latin, like Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian, owe a huge debt to Rome. Even English has tons of Latin-based words. Roman law formed the basis for legal systems in many Western countries. Concepts like citizenship, justice, and property rights were developed and codified by the Romans. Their engineering was mind-blowing. Aqueducts brought fresh water into cities over vast distances. Their roads connected the empire and are still visible in some places today. Concrete, Roman invention. And their ideas about government, while not a direct copy, influenced later republics and empires. The very concept of a senate or elected officials has roots in Rome. Ancient Rome wasn't perfect, far from it. It had slavery, inequality, and periods of brutal tyranny. But its achievements in law, engineering, language, and governance were monumental and continue to shape our world. It's a history full of lessons, drama, and some truly wild characters. All right, history buffs and future scholars, that was a whirlwind tour of ancient Rome. From Wolf-Ray's twins to world-conquering emperors, it's a story packed with action, intrigue, and innovation. If you learned something new, chuckled at a Roman quirk, or just think gladiators are cool, smash that like button. What's your favorite Roman fact or figure? Let us know in the comments below. And for more epic journeys through history, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. We've got plenty more ancient adventures coming your way.